it would be in all of our best interest to really be thinking about what's the goal of these companies.
If you're not thinking about this stuff right now, my biggest fear is that when you are ready to start thinking about it, it's going to be too late.
To be able to leverage what we provide as a human, real life creation versus an AI creation.
We are poets, videographers, musicians who are alive in the beginning era of the rest of our lives, which is going to involve AI.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yes.
Whether we like it or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Already is.
Yeah.
Involving AI.
So basically, this is just going to be a discussion to talk about how AI is impacting all of our respective media. And we're going to be talking about concerns. We're going to be talking about potential advantages. And we're also going to be talking about some strategies that maybe we want to be considering as people involved in creative industries moving forward. Because there's kind of an urgency element to this stuff, because this stuff is developing at a rate that is only getting faster and faster. Yep. We're going to be taking a look at examples, for instance, with ChatGPT. What was ChatGPT doing with poetry a year ago, 2 years ago, versus what it's doing now? We see it with video generation. We see it with music generation. All of our industries are impacted, and it's only going to continue. Right. But maybe before we get more into that, let's just kind of introduce ourselves. Jordan, I'm going to start with you. You can give us like a 10-15 second spiel.
Yeah,
Who are you,
yeah.
sir?
So I'm Jordan Sandage, or Jordage as a musician. I'm a singer-songwriter. I do poetry as well. And I have been using AI tools since 2022, just picking some things apart from what I do on a personal level. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about what the future of this atmosphere of art and music is with AI with you guys.
We're going to get it.
Cool. I am Dante Wood Spikes. I like food. If you got it, give it to me. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, do you need to know anything else? Seriously? But videographer, speaker, author. My book is actually somewhere in here. It's somewhere in here. You know, I
got it too.
I dibble dabble in, a couple of different things. Poetry a little bit as well. I am someone that was originally fighting against AI, but I'm slowly allowing bits and pieces into my creativity. It's been a bit of a struggle because of the way you've been conditioned to be creative. But I'm slowly allowing bits and pieces in, and I'm recognizing that things are simply just changing, and we have to adapt.
It's funny you say that. I will introduce myself in a moment. My wife was telling me about when the kaleidoscope first came out. People were freaking out about the kaleidoscope because they're like, "Oh my gosh, kids are just gonna be like doing this like all day." And I'm sure we've all seen pictures of like people riding the bus with newspapers, and like people are like, "Oh my gosh." People freaking out. Or like when the novels first came out, people were like, this is going to just destroy children's minds and things like that. And now obviously AI is kind of like the latest thing. Just to introduce myself really quick. So my name is Geoff. I am the founder of The Verses. The Verses is all about trying to teach creative and financial independence specifically for poets. So really trying to not approach poetry from a standpoint of nonprofit, philanthropy, grants, contests, submissions. Like, no, we can find ways to support ourselves independently in 2025 and be successful. I use AI, aspects of AI, and the reality is I think most of us, if we are living in 2025, whether you like to admit it or not, you're probably using AI
or being used by it.
Or being used by it. I mean, there is no neutral. There is no neutral. Like you're involved in it whether you want to be or not.
Unless you're off the grid.
If you have a phone and you press I agree, AI is using you. You know what I mean? Like you press I agree.
I mean, even if you're just using a phone, like it's literally tied into like the algorithm. Like
pretty much.
How these things function?
When that commercial come on and your phone start giving you it's like
so. All right. So I do have to apologize. You are going to see me looking down at my phone because I do have some notes and things there. because there are things I want to make sure that we touch on. And then, of course, for our people hanging out with us, again, thanks. we do have to say thank you to Caroline and Dan and just the Prologue team. Thank you guys so much for allowing us to be here in this space. If you haven't checked out Prologue is a bookstore in Columbus, Ohio. They have a website. You can also order it from them online. They greatly appreciate it. They have lots of great recommendations.
Come in and get a recommendation.
Come and get a recommendation.
Come
They're
say hi.
literally, you may see like these like little like flyer things. Like they literally are trying to get you to be involved with the books that you're about to read, right?
Yeah, read wonderful things.
Which we really appreciate it. So let's maybe just begin with a warm-up question. How are you using AI currently in any aspect of your life that you're like super conscious about? Let's just kind of take turns. I'll start with Jordan.
Cool. So I use AI through Apple Intelligence in note taking and things. Just taking my quick notes, and then which are usually like voice memos that I'm reading into a thing, and then kind of pulling those over into a more digestible form because I kind of stream of conscious ramble. So I use Apple Intelligence. I use in terms of applications. I'm using Rocket Money, which isn't AI, but I'm transitioning into Sequence.io, which is this new financial tool for tracking all of your bank accounts and things like that. So I have a business account, I have my personal account, I have credit cards with both of those things, and so I need to make sure I understand where my money's going and how I'm saving those things. So utilizing it in a lot of the clerical administrative stuff that I do as a musician, I utilize AI tools to kind of offload some of that work, and that's my best use for those things. So yes, go ahead.
You don't mind if I interrupt you?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you're using AI. You're viewing it. I'm a musician who uses AI for the like directly music stuff that I need. Yeah. Like budgeting and money and...
I wouldn't say I'm a purist, but I think in terms of being a creative, there's no story in easy. So I feel like as a creative, you have to challenge yourself to create against whatever the thing is that's fighting against you in the real world. So we're fighting against AI. We have to continue. We have to be even more human, even more real, even more important, even more deeply into what we do, because they can't. What these things do is they are machine learning tools. So they're ingesting things that have happened already, things that are in the past. So if you're taking, there's the Jay-Z recording that happened where he was reading Shakespeare, right? They took all that information based on his voice, based on Shakespeare, and had a reinterpretation of him like rapping Shakespeare. But as cool as that is, a human went in and put that thing together and made that thing happen. Mm-hmm. It's not doing it on its own, right? Mm-hmm. So along those lines, when you have these libraries and things that the AI is going to, whether it's an actual library or a music library, it's going through things that have already happened. So it can only predict based on the past. And we as humans, we change all the time. So we're not always, we may look at our past and think something different moving forward, or reinterpret that in some different way, or we may go a complete opposite direction. But what AI is doing and what it can never do is replicate that decision making to change course or all these little things in the present. All it can do is look at the past and say, oh, this is what you do a lot of, here's what this looks like. And then it may sound like me, it may have the same structure as one of my older songs, but it's not the me now, it's not the me in the future, right? So to saying all that, I think the way I use AI, so I have started to use Photoshop and use the generative AI within Photoshop, which is pretty wild. And as much as some of that generative AI is pulling from other images and things like that. I'm finding a lot of what's happening with my stuff is from the pictures that I've taken or the drawings that I've done, and then reinterpreting those on themselves basically, rather than it reaching out. So yeah, I have a really weird relationship with how deep I'll go into an AI thing. If when it starts feeling like it's doing too much in terms of a creative aspect, or if it's carrying the major load, I kind of back off of it a little bit. It feels like a crutch in a way, and that's just a me thing. Some people love that. Some people love that ease. There are things that we all need help on. So coming back to the things that I use, so Sequence.io will be a thing that I'll be using. Photoshop generative AI is great. I've used Midjourney. I've used Canva for some graphic design needs as well. The things that as a musician, they say you need a team. You need people to do all these things. AI is making it so that we don't need all these people, and we can kind of do things ourselves to a certain degree with a little bit of more oversight, right? I think you still need people in the mix for the most part, but for the smaller things, a lot of people were doing all these things themselves anyway. And now that we have AI tools to do those administrative things, we can get back to the creating a lot easier. So a lot of those things, I'm looking into more tools that I can use, or maybe transition out of some tools into some other tools, so that I can continue doing the art without being hindered by all the other stuff that I need to do or need to find a person to do. Or
Gotcha.
It creates time in the craft for me. So
Thank you, Jordan. Very extensive.
Yeah.
Answer.
Beautiful answer. I would join your campaign. This man said, to fight against AI, we must become more human. I will join you just because of that. I don't care. If you started something tomorrow, I'm on your team.
I appreciate that.
But I would have to say, like, the way that you ended it about how it creates more time for the creative to do other things, I would have to agree. I initially fought against it because when I was younger, I remember my mom telling me, "Don't use the calculator. Try and figure this out on your own.
Yes,
Don't
I
use a
got that
calculator." So I'm in class like fighting because I'm like, I want to use this calculator, but I hear my mom's voice in the back of my head. And I'm like, why can't I just use the calculator or go to the back of the math book and get the answer? Like, let me do this. Let me get an A.
Let me use it.
What is this? So
They gave us these for a reason.
right, what is it here for? But when you actually introduced me to the music, the AI music,
Can I tell the story?
please do. Please tell.
So we had a summit talk in December called Write Up for 2025, and I had a dinner with all our presenters just to kind of throw the idea to them and see if they wanted to join. And during that dinner, Dante was one of our speakers, and we got onto the topic of AI, kind of similar to this, smaller scale. And I was like, have you ever played it with any of like the music generators? Because they're wild, especially using Google has a music generator called Music FX, and I was just like you can like say like, hey, like I want like Latin music, or I want like classical music, or I want like lo-fi. And then like we finished dinner, then I get a text or a message from Dante like 3 hours later. He's like, yo, I just made a mixtape. It's got 12 tracks.
Oh, it's dangerous. I like it, but I like it.
Yeah, that's how I felt. That's legitimately how I felt. And I didn't want to do it, but it reminded me of society is constantly progressing, right? And things that we didn't want to do, we do now. Things that we thought we would always dismiss is just a part of our everyday norm. And when it comes to technology, it is constantly evolving. With the music for AI, I do a couple of different things: multimedia, video, photography, and whatnot. But when I do recap videos, I am very specific about the music that I use, because
we also want to talk music's expensive.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah, I
Like,
know.
you gotta get the rights.
Right.
Like,
Licensing.
you gotta get the licensing, and the worst is like musicians who are like, oh yeah, just take my I don't care, just take my track. That's never do that. Never. If someone like offers you to,
Nah,
don't do
don't
that
do
because
that.
that is illegal. Because
That-
what happens 10 years from now when they change their mind and they're like, oh, you know what, that track you used 10 years ago.
Yeah.
he gonna hit me up like, how much money did you make off my track?
Don't
Off
let,
that man.
don't let Jordan give you his
He
music.
gonna be
Don't
like,
do it.
how much money?
Get a contract. Get a contract.
I've been very like I do want people to use my music,
Yeah.
but at the same time, recently, just thinking about I am signed to a publishing company that does sync licensing for me and stuff. So I'm like, I would love for you to use it, but I
Now it's harder,
I
'cause I have
can't
to
let
go through
you
your
because
company now.
I don't want to go do this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like I wish I
Yeah.
could. You can have me on. And that's good. That's great. But the music
Right.
that I have released, like. It's tied up in a way where it's not enough, not worth the hassle for us to
And
go
like, there's
through
all
this
kinds
thing.
of there's like even like
It could be
you do-
simple,
it
but
could be.
for me right now, it's not simple. So,
And like,
It's a process.
even if you use like the platforms, like if you use like if you make YouTube videos and you use YouTube's music, and like you can license stuff now, but the license is on a term limit. Like it's on like it's 5 year. Like what happens after?
Exactly.
Like it's
Yeah.
like this is like
you gotta
it's
keep track of
very
all that
short.
stuff too.
And what happens is that's the reason I'm so specific, because I've created videos for clients.
So now it's not just you, but it's like, oh my god.
Created videos for clients, and you put it up on, let's say, YouTube for
Right.
them to utilize, or Instagram or Facebook and whatnot. If it is not present within the database, their database, and you use it, no, you have to use it based off their terms. It's like licensing for the time being. But like you said, that 5 years when it's up, and that
one
track
knows.
is gone.
No one knows.
No one
like,
knows
no
when it's
one
going
knows.
to change and shift at any point in time. So when you would say it to me, Dante, you can just create tracks, and I'm like, well, I just need some instrumentals for my projects that I'm working on, right? And sometimes I could spend 4 days
Trying to find the
trying
right
to
track.
find that right track, trying to find that right sound, trying to find the one that just complements this video and what's going on, but as I'm trying to tell this story, right?
Or you settle for something that's almost.
Almost that, or the
Yeah.
the client will be like, can we change the music? I'm like, I just spent 4 damn days making this track. And if you use samples, that the same samples or pre-created drum kits or anything that someone else uses, now the database recognizes that as someone else's music too. So even if
Yeah.
it's royalty free,
Yeah, you have to.
You gotta go through
if-
that
if you go
process.
through GarageBand and use their
Yep.
use their samples and stuff like that.
Or what happens-
They actually in DistroKid, they're like, did you use any samples or any sound bites from these things,
Yeah.
etc. Like, and they'll name like GarageBand as one of them, or Splice as another one. Like,
Yep.
did you use any sounds from these applications, and you don't own this.
Correct.
Like,
Or also happens on
Correct.
YouTube too. Like if you could even make your own class. Let's say you play piano or guitar or something like that, and you play like a classical piece. Even though you made it, and it might even be like royalty free and stuff like that, but there are like malpractitioners out there that will claim that they own it, even though they don't, just to see if they can get away with it.
and some of
So
those are
then-
driven by AI as well.
Yeah, which are also driven by it very often. And so you can even appeal, and you might get the appeal, but the problem is it takes time. So like, if you're like a monetized platform on like TikTok or YouTube or whatever, now you've just lost all the income on that video waiting for the appeal process to go through. So it's like
yeah,
with the AI,
I had to wait a month
yeah.
for a video, and
Yeah.
it was like the first time I was like, oh damn. So when you told me about the possibility of creating music like that, I didn't want to do it because I had that calculator philosophy in my head.
Yeah.
But when I had 5 beautifully produced tracks in less than 2 days, I can't combat
So,
that. I can't
It's very,
combat
yeah,
that.
it's very hard.
So I think this also speaks to if you're, I don't want to like jump the gun too far, but I'm thinking of like industries that are in the crosshairs of AI right now. Stock photography,
Yeah,
your there's no reason to go to Getty Images or anything like that and buy something, you know. Those 24-hour lo-fi channels on YouTube, you know.
I created some of those tracks.
This is why wouldn't you?
I did. I literally
all
did.
of us should
You gotta
probably
put
have
your-
1,000
you gotta get your
lo-fi
reps in.
24-hour channels. There's no reason not.
You gotta
Like
get
we
your
all
reps
could.
in,
There's
yeah.
nothing to stop us. Like all of us could. You know, like clip art creators, like people just making like low. I don't want to say low effort because it still takes time to make it, but like stuff that's people aren't necessarily looking for pure creativity. They're just looking for background music. You know, like for instance, it sounds like you, Dante, are kind of using what I needed for my videos for YouTube, where it's just I need something that just like sets the mood that people hear it and forget it because they're really just paying attention to the main content. I just need something for the background where I don't want to worry too much about licensing. I don't want to pay lots of money for this because I'm not looking for high quality music. I'm really just looking for something that passes, and the music generator is already at that level where it's just like, oh, I can make something that's pleasant to hear, that doesn't draw a lot of attention, that can do a range of styles and things like that. You know,
Right.
Yeah, there's a really dark side to that as well.
there is.
I don't know if we want to go there yet, but
I mean, I guess we're here.
but
We-
I mean,
we-
I'm not to step on your game here, but a lot of these music making applications are also getting the companies are getting litigation because what they're doing is they're using copyrighted material to train those AI in order to make those sounds and make those things. So, you know, we used to have all these producers doing, you know, type beats, you know what I mean, where they're saying, oh, this is a Drake type beat, oh, this is a Young Thug type beat. Had producers doing that themselves. They were doing it. Now we have AI doing that same thing, but on a much more massive scale. And so, for me, which is where that it's a medium versus I can't think of what else I'm trying to say, but in terms of being a musician, I want to stay as far away as I can from that side of the AI stuff because of how litigious the world is, but also how risky it is in terms of like creating your own thing and putting that out as your music. Now, as a videographer, if you're doing that thing, I think thinking about you know where it's getting its where it's being trained, how it's receiving that data is important, but at the same time, your focus is the video. You're just throwing some stuff in the background. So it's up to you to determine how deep you want to go on that and how much you want to look at that. But I think it would be in all of our best interest to really be thinking about what's the goal of these companies and how are these companies acquiring this knowledge in order to do these things. And I think that's the thing that always comes back to me. I'm like, I'm gonna try this financial app, and now I'm giving this AI all of my financial information. What am I doing? Like this is literally like the worst case scenario. But in order for me to do all the other stuff I want to do and be creative, I have to give somewhere, which is like the biggest thing, which is the scariest thing for all of us. I think is where do we give and do we realize how much we're giving up when we do give into these applications?
Right.
And
a lot of us are going to be tests.
Yeah. I mean, it's in terms of like even just identifying. Like I don't know. Like I just learned about this recently. Like printers, when you print something, they all print like a special code that you can't see. That usually is like yellow ink or something that like identifies what printer it came from for like everything.
Yep.
So they can like track you and stuff like that. It's like if you do like counterfeit money, Dante.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
All right, he's just going
But I don't.
That's the first
I told the world what I was going to do.
That's the first time hearing that.
Crazy.
So, that's crazy.
But I don't know.
That's
if,
why I
like,
run out of ink so much.
but that's why you can't print something if it doesn't have
That's
yellow
where you
ink.
been.
The printer will not let you print something if you don't have yellow ink. That's
crazy.
your fun fact for today.
That's a huge fact.
I don't know if the music has that. Whereas like if I take like a Drake song or something like that, it's so easy for them to identify and be like, oh, this is. But like for this stuff, that's like there's no database
There's no blueprint,
to
yeah.
run it.
Or
so,
not blueprint, there's no,
so it becomes
DNA.
hard. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing with like, just from a copyright perspective, is just like, it's the Wild West right now. It's like, how do you
Absolutely, and
you
it's they're trying to create legislation around it, and I think the focus right now is voice, is making sure that people own their voice, and that their voice isn't being used, which is why the Jay-Z track got taken down, the Drake and who was it? Drake and somebody else is harder on the sleeve, harder on your sleeve. AI track that came out that was Drake and someone else. That got taken down. Like they're going after these people that are making these. Drake made that tailor-made freestyle that got taken down.
so
They're going after all these things because they're utilizing people's voice, and they haven't. No one's thought to say like, or the voice is like the most unique thing about us. And now we have this AI that can replicate these voices and make you think that it's somebody that it's not, and spoof. You know what I mean? All these things, and just like we were saying, like they're sliding these tracks into people's discographies and getting plays, and the money's going to them. It's not going to the art. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting right now, and it's very hard to write legislation on it.
yeah, it's playing catch up.
We're always playing catch up. So it's getting really interesting. Like Nashville just signed the Elvis Act, which is about live voice like ownership. That was in Nashville back in I think April, March, something like that. So they're fighting to ensure that people aren't creating
Just like
fake
taking
Elvis tracks and things like that.
You can
But
impersonate
there's
them, but you can't
there's also a bunch of other artists involved with that act that were behind it, and so like it's a huge deal.
I want to shift topics a little bit just to kind of talk about.
Sure.
So we talk about kind of like just like some legal aspects of it. I want to talk about people's response, especially with regards to poetry, but I'm happy to dive into music and video as well. I'm going to read an example of a poem that I asked ChatGPT to write 2 years ago when it first came out. I'm just going to focus on the first stanza, and I'm going to show you how the iterations changed based on things I asked it to do. Here's the first stanza. I forget the original prompt I asked it, but this is the poem it got me. The sky is blue, the grass is green, the world is vast and full of scenes, from mountains high to oceans deep. There's beauty here for us to keep. Okay, that's ChatGPT,
Sounds like
December 14th, 2022.
Like a nightly prayer.
Okay.
So, I should die before I wake. Pray the Lord my soul to take.
It probably took
it's
from
probably-
that.
that's
It's not legitimate.
There
It probably
was a
did.
time-
If it's familiar, then it might be
It's
that thing.
look, ChatGPT. There was a time when you did ChatGPT and you asked it to write a poem. Everything would rhyme. Every single thing would rhyme. I don't know if anyone played around with it. So I took that poem and in December 12th, 2022, I also asked it. I was like, hey, I want you to add stakes. So take that same poem but add some stakes to it. And this is
Like,
what it did.
Stakes to eat, stakes to stab.
Stakes like implications, in it, right?
Got it.
This was the new version. The sky is blue, the grass is green, but time is short, and life is fleeting. We must act now before it's too late to protect this world
Ooh, it
and
jumped.
its fate.
It jumped.
All right, so it added stakes.
The
to like
stakes are
That's
stakes.
not AI.
It
I was-
went-
that's the Terminator
it went
right there.
in.
It's all-
Yeah,
It went in.
That's that Boots poem.
So then, today when I was just like doing some research and things for our talk, I basically sent it the same poem that it wrote, and I said, "Hey, make this better." And so this is what it gave me.
When did you do this?
Literally today.
Okay.
So this is ChatGPT, January. What day is today? The 9th or whatever, 8th, 9th.
Okay, so 2 years later.
Yeah. And keep in mind, I sent it the poem, so I said like it's still working with the same parameters, but I just said, hey, make it better. The sky shines blue, the fields glow green, yet time slips by like a fading dream. We must rise now, no moment to waste, to shield this world before it's erased. Now, I don't think any of these poems are going to win Pulitzers, things like that. But
No.
what I will say is that I found that the language in the 2-year span, again, not having the greatest words to work with necessarily.
Right.
There is a little bit more natural quality. I like the like, for instance, the stakes, it kind of eased into them a little bit more.
Yeah.
The lines are a little bit smoother. It's not going with the super cerebral like fates and things like that. You know, the rhymes. I think
Did you
are a
have it?
little bit-
Did you have it make a new poem?
I did not have it make an entirely new poem, but I do want to talk about that in a study. I thought the rhymes like waste and erase, like the rhyming was a little bit more complex. I felt over time, which I thought was interesting. I do also want to kind of just highlight some studies, and then feel free to interrupt me at any time just to kind of talk about what are some things that are going on with AI. Probably one that some of us have already seen before. There was the Brian Porter and Edward Mashary. Sorry if I mispronounced their names. AI generated poetry is indistinguishable from human written poetry and is rated more favorably. This was a study that came out within the last 6 months or so. Some information from that. 5 poems. So they did a whole study, and in the study, the 5 poems with the lowest rates of human ratings. So people rated them as whether they sounded human or AI. These were the lowest. So more AI.
That's crazy.
They were actually written by actual humans. They were not written by machines.
That's wild,
Meanwhile,
bro. That's wild.
Meanwhile, no, it gets better. 4 of the 5 poems with the highest ratings of, a human definitely wrote this, were actually generated by AI.
Interesting. I want to know who the poets were.
Yeah, I think it's
That is good.
who's reading.
Yeah, I think that's the real, is who is determining, like, who
Are
they
these
giving this study to?
Pulitzer poems?
So, non-expert participants are more likely to judge an AI-generated poem to be human-authored than a poem that is actually human-authored.
Maybe
So,
AI.
people
did
who
that
don't
whole
have
thing.
experience with poetry view AI-written poetry as being more human, which is not surprising because I know
That's
we like to
interesting.
think that we're poets and everyone's poets, but the reality is not many people read a lot of poetry, so did the
That's
experiences.
interesting. That's very interesting. I really want to know who the poets were.
That does.
I want to know where the poems came from.
Yeah, but that's our first study. Other thoughts on
It's
that study
probably
right there?
AI
right?
that did
It's
that whole
probably
thing
AI
to
right
convince
there.
us.
That's what I'm saying. It's probably,
AI did that to convince us
literally all AI.
that AI is better than humans doing poems. You know.
I mean, I feel like I can believe that. I can believe those facts. I'll call them from that. But I feel like the stakes of the tests of the study need to be higher. I feel like give it some actual. Did the study actually have the poems in it?
That's a good question. I did not.
Okay.
I was going through these very
but
quickly.
I
I focused on the discussions. I'll be honest. I didn't look at the methodology. I focused on the discussion.
Would love to dive into that.
But again, that's Brian Porter and Edward Mashary for AI generated poets indistinguishable from human written poetry. You can find that for people interested.
Sweet. Where was that published?
Good question. I don't have an answer for it.
Okay.
I know that when
I'll
it
get it
came
from you
out,
later.
there were several websites that were like talking about it. I mean, it relatively made big news.
Gotcha.
Some other studies and things that have come out recently. So there was by Jamie Fraser et al. Spoken conversational AI in video games. They say that like emotional dialogue movement, so getting AI, like NPC, non-player controlled characters in games to use AI to generate conversation actually makes people feel more involved in the gameplay and things like that. Probably not super surprising to hear that.
Right.
I mean, we talk to Siri. Siri talks back
Yeah,
like,
facts.
like
Yeah,
a person,
right.
so it's
Right.
that's. Yeah.
And I don't even know if people are necessarily even against that.
Yeah.
People actually. That's probably one aspect of AI when people are probably.
I think everybody likes it.
It's taking. I mean, it's taking voice actor.
I mean,
Jobs,
now that's a whole
maybe?
other.
But
We should have gotten a voice actor in here. Yeah,
but that's not. Yeah.
Another one from Lucas Belish et al. Humans versus AI. Whether and why we prefer human-created compared to AI-created artwork. Just some findings for our artist friends out there. What are some findings from that? People have a bias against AI. Probably not very surprising to hear that.
Right.
But they struggle visually to tell differences.
Because everyone's
between
making AI art nowadays. Like, humans are using paint on canvas to make AI art. In mass, online, for views, for videos. So, like, that's my opinion.
I feel what you're saying.
They're doing a thing that's easily replicatable. They can reproducible, so they can do it over and over and over again. I follow this guy who makes fun of a lot of artists online, a lot of visual artists. Art's art. If a human's doing it, I'm fine with it. But he makes fun of a lot of these artists, and some of them are just putting paint in a bucket, spinning it, and throwing it over a canvas.
Correct.
It's art, but it's very, very reproducible. You know what I mean? So I feel like that could also be the reason why it's indistinguishable. That's a reason for me to believe that. But I'm not saying everyone's doing that type of art. There's tons of other people are doing that doesn't look like that. But
I feel like social media through all of the different apps or things that we could sign up for just to change our profile picture. Oh, have a little avatar. Oh, have a Picasso style piece where we've been conditioned to just say, oh yeah, that's what art is starting to look like.
Yeah. Give me what's already there.
Was already there. So through the process of using us as test subjects, seeing like, oh, people like this. So if we find a way to reproduce this, I feel like not only the visual artists but the digital artists really never had their time to shine, because I feel like digital art was just now starting to find its ground. And as soon as it started to find its ground through all of the conversations, it's graphic design and digital art, like real art, because it's not on the canvas, it's on a iPad or a tablet, right? As soon as it began to be embraced, here comes AI with all those pictures with 10 damn fingers, Jesus in the background, a little dog. And you're like, all I typed in was, I need a garage. And it's like, well, damn. But the fact that you can have that same image recreated multiple times, like that poem, all I have to do is press that button.
Yep.
And I don't have to think about the digital artist that could have created this and give me exactly what I asked for. But it's so much easier, and it's free, and it's convenience.
And I think also to your point, the rise of digital design, digital art, coupled with the rise of AI, I think that is the equalizer there when it comes to people being able to discern what's AI and what's human, because so many humans are creating digital art, so it could be anything, and it would look like it's AI just from it could be either and someone just flipping a coin saying, oh, that's AI, oh, that's not.
So I think probably like the last topic I really want to tackle is, what do I need to do if I'm an artist, if I'm a poet, if I'm a digital artist, if I'm a videographer, if I'm a musician in 2025 and beyond, who's like, I want my work to sustain me. How do I make that happen in an AI era? Because I mentioned that I think there's a lot of urgency to this, because I think if you're not thinking about this stuff right now, my biggest fear is that when you are ready to start thinking about it, it's going to be too late, because we are going to get inundated. In fact, we already are. It's already started. We're going to get inundated with low quality to medium quality work. And if we're producing low quality to medium quality work that's aimless and has no strategy to it, why would anyone interact with what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Like, because it's almost like, if I can get something, I can get the same product from something else that's cheaper and faster and of the same quality. So obviously, I have to find a different way to connect with an audience, because if I'm just going off of price, or if I'm just going off of convenience, I'm going to lose.
Right.
So maybe if we can kind of take turns, like Jordan, if you can give some thoughts on like what a musician should do, Dante, if you give some thoughts on like from a videographer perspective, I can kind of give some thoughts on it from a poetry perspective.
I think the angle that I'm taking in my own life. So if you can learn anything from what I'm doing, I'm everything that's not specifically my art and it is somehow connected to it in my life. I am trying to in some way automate and oversee. So I'm utilizing tools that make it easy for me to do those things, whether that's the motion AI schedule app, so I can make sure my calendar is locked in and I'm doing certain things at a certain time and meeting my goals there. I also have Jesse Eitzler's Big A calendar on my wall that I'm writing. I have the whole year mapped out. But utilizing scheduling apps, financial applications, apps that are or things that are ancillary to your thing. So like I'm a musician, I want to write music, I want to do that more. So things that hinder me from doing that is needing to balance my checkbook and do my taxes and schedule all my meetings out and find time to eat and things like that. So I've literally almost automated everything in my life. And now I'm like full bore. I've written the most I've written in the past 4 years, in the past like 4 months. Like I've done so many things. So I think find a way to utilize these tools to your advantage for the things that you can't do that well yourself. So they say as a business person, you need a team to do things. If you can't afford a team, then employ these tools. They're much cheaper than a person. They take a little bit of work to overcome some of the learning curve and getting them to work the way you need them to work. But once you do that, you're locked in. And yeah, I've had a very, very creative last quarter of last year. So I'm excited for this year.
Okay.
I would say strive for quality and quickness. And when I say quality, once you've developed your skills and you know what you create, do the best you can to finish as quick as possible while maintaining quality, just to keep up with the possibilities of AI just taking over every damn thing, right? But I also feel like a lot of what becomes new becomes old. We are in first it was like the 8-track, right? Then it was what was next? The record player, whatnot.
Tape deck,
CD player. Now we're streaming music, but there's groups of people that love the record player. And you can leverage. You can't leverage a record player. Say, hey, buy a record player just because I want you to. But it has that crisp sound to it that people like. And they know that, I could stream music if I want to. I could buy a CD if I want to, but I really want this sound that comes from the record player. I believe as creators, whether it's video, poetry, music, to be able to leverage what we provide as a human, real life creation versus an AI creation. It's we are our own category versus AI. And I feel like how everyone listens to podcasts. When everybody first started listening to podcasts, I was like, I'm not listening to this because y'all do. I don't want to. Y'all trying to force me to listen to it. I'm like, didn't they do this back in like the 60s all the time? When they cut the radio on and the dude was talking, they couldn't even watch the game. You know what I'm saying? The game, they couldn't see the game live. I'm like, why are y'all going backwards in time? But you recognize something that was created in the past became much more efficient and readily available and present and meaningful for the new age that we lived in. So like we let go of the podcast or like the radio because it's like we don't even need it no more. But you see, it came back as a whole new version, but it's the same exact thing. And I feel like we have to leverage our humanity.
We need to leverage we need to stay tuned in and leverage our humanity against these things.
But what you said sums up how I feel. Leverage your humanity and whatever it is you create. Let it be known this is a human creation, not an AI.
And
it's going to be different.
These are tools to be used. We need to exploit these tools to our advantage.
Right.
Everything is against us. Everything is against us as creatives trying to do anything in this world. Other creatives, different tools, AI tools, the people that run venues and places that harbor our goods. Like, I think we need to leverage our humanness and create harder. If I could steal some words from Marcus, create harder, and just. I was going to say something that was going to be a little crass. So just use the tools to your advantage and don't let the tools use you.
That is, I mean, just similar to the studies that we've seen, like when something is labeled as AI art, people have a naturally, especially for people
aversion.
Yeah, if people aren't accustomed to AI art or already have preconceptions about it, they automatically hear AI art and they view it negatively.
Right.
And conversely, when people hear this was human created, they naturally elevate it. So that certainly could be an advantage.
I think the other part of that is that when it takes a bit of work to get AI to do the thing that you want it to do. So when it does something like really well, there's a person behind that prompted it to do those things. So I don't want to say all AI art is bad or all things that AI produces are bad, but we have to have a discerning eye and understanding of how these things work, so that we can better understand and better curate our lives around them as artists.
Yeah. I guess lastly, from a poet writing perspective, I think the real key is that, and I think if you're someone who's already worried about it and worried about how am I going to find people for my work, I think if you're already worried about that, in some ways you've already kind of lost. Because like I think the most people are protected already, have created their moat or created their system that is going to shield them a bit. And I think a real way to do that is by approaching our art from a perspective of, it's not just your art form, like who is your art serving? You know, and obviously like I think there's a natural personal satisfaction that comes, but like I think if you're putting art into the world, most likely you're also then thinking about audience. You know, so then the question is, how am I serving this audience, and what am I doing with my art to serve that audience better and give them something that really resonates? You know, so I think that the more we can really tap into that, the more we can actually start kind of creating work that is going to be able to, you know, survive.
And there was a thing that I was going to say, in terms of musicians. These distributors, DistroKid, TuneCore, whatever, and leading up to Spotify, Apple Music, all those things, they have tools in them because they want your success as much as you do, but they're not going to help. They're not going to give you all the help that you need.
Of course not.
They also provide tools within those applications that help you market and help you learn how to find your fan. When you find your people, connect to them honestly and truthfully, and keep that information for yourself. Yeah. Find a way to siphon that information from these tools, so that they're not used for Spotify's means and used for your means.
Yeah.
It's one thing that James Blake was really, really adamant about this past summer and this past couple of years, was the fact that, you know, as musicians, we have these people going online, buying tickets and everything, and they have all this information, but who's holding that information? Ticketmaster, Live Nation, they're holding that information. It's not, they can't give it to the artist. I mean, there's obviously legal things around the reasons why they can't do that legally, but I feel as an artist myself, I'm like, I wish I could have, if I went to somewhere and played a show, I could have all the information from the people
Right.
that bought tickets, so I could then say, hey, I'm coming back through here, just so you know.
Right.
That sort of thing. So.
Which is why they, having your own newsletter, having your own website versus a social media platform where, if YouTube decided to be like, hey, tomorrow we're shutting down everything,
It'll be
sucks.
bad.
What are you going, or the same thing with like
Which,
Facebook and stuff like that.
some of those things you can automate.
Which or like this isn't a social media. We could do a whole other talking just on social media practices and things like that. But I think going back to the poetry stuff, one of the things that I used to have group posts I was working with, trying to just help them establish their own kind of services based on around poetry that they could offer to people, and a lot of that was like taking your work and adding an and to it. So like for instance, poetry, and like for instance for me, one of the things I'm doing in my business, like poetry is directly a part of the work I do. Got my own teaching business, teaching like pronunciation. We're using poetry 30% of the classes. It's like poetry is literally a core aspect of what I am doing. So it's like, okay, let's do poetry and pronunciation. Let's do poetry and managing grief. Let's do poetry and improving literacy with kids. Let's do poetry. And it's like, the more you can, it's kind of like ask yourself, what do you want to be associated with? People don't just associate with poetry. What kind of poetry? Are you like, are you like the parenting poet? Are you like the poetry with like alcoholism? Are you the poet with like whatever it may be? The more people have those sorts of associations with you, versus that like, oh, this is the poet I go to if I need something cheap and fast. Well, if that's what you're going for, you're going to be at the bottom of the barrel. Because there's always going to be someone that's faster than you, and there's always going to be someone that's cheaper than you.
And AI is real fast.
And it's real free.
It's real free.
It's real free.
For now. For now.
For now.
For now.
For sure. But that'd be my big thing, is like in terms of separation. What do you want to be known for in your art, and what steps are you doing to move in that direction?
Do you think you could ask AI what the future of AI is?
Maybe.
Yeah, but I think the real question is, do you think you would trust the answer it'll give you?
I don't know. I'm curious. I'm like, what would AI say about
I think it would tell me something I want to hear.
I feel like there's someone right now asking that question every day to AI.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
To see how the answer changes.
100%.
Someone's got that information.
I do want to be conscious of Prologue's time. I want to thank Prologue again for allowing us to take up space and sharing the venue
Thank
with
you
us.
guys.
Greatly appreciated.
providing us a human experience.
Yes, providing
It's
us
not.
with the real
Thank you
human
very
experience,
much.
real human recommendations and things like that.
Yeah.
Real human handwritten note card recommendations.
Facts. Obviously, this discussion on AI, this is just a taste of things to come, but I think the thing we really need to realize is that today is the worst that AI is going to be for the rest of our lives, so we need to act fast, because
I see it getting so much worse.
I do too.
You mean how bad it is right now? Like as in the quality.
Yeah, in terms of quality,
it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah,
the quality of the AI is only
like,
going to get better. Yes.
It's only going to get more and more indistinguishable.
Yeah.
So I think 2025 is the year that you can really use AI to leverage yourself, create a creative business, and sustain yourself, and use AI as an asset. Like I said, I do think there's a time element to this, because I think in 2 years, 3 years, it's going to get a lot harder.
Yep, just
We're
like
gonna get flooded.
Just like a lot of things happen very, very quickly.
Yeah.
very, very
don't,
quickly.
Don't just like brush this stuff aside.
And also
Pay attention to it.
with the way that they're working, they're trying to get legislation to catch up to some of these things. It's gonna get dicier and dicier trying to find what works, how it works, how to jump those hoops to get it, because the people that are currently making art and building their following are going to be the ones out in front of all the blocks and everything that's happening. The people that, just like with the TikTok ban coming, people that already have their audience built up on TikTok, they can just say, hey, we're going over here now, and move over. Whereas if you're just building, you have to then figure out who doesn't have a tribe that they're a part of to come to your thing, or you're too late for TikTok, basically. So
I got like a billion more questions, but we out of
I
time.
know.
But I would just say I think that people are, as more restrictions and legislation and whatnot comes around artificial intelligence, I believe people are going to continue to find ways around it, like they've done with music, like they've done with plenty of other things
that's why
still
that's why
utilize.
UMG bought a publishing company so they can handle all their AI production.
But yeah, I think people are going to continue to try and find ways around it because it's going to be a part of what we do every day.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why you gotta learn it now, so you can find the ways around it,
Yeah.
so you can be there for the changes.
Speaking of questions and things like that, please, reply to us. Let us know about specific aspects of AI you want to discuss more, because it's a discussion that we're going to continue having.
Yeah,
Cool.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you both.